Welcome to Financial Issues, where we join reality with truth, helping you make the most of your money by honoring God with your investments. Now listen in as we give you the practical tools and advice you need to become a biblically responsible investor.
Good morning. Welcome to Financial Issues. Thanks for tuning in today. Financial Issues is a ministry that helps to educate people about financial issues from a biblical worldview. We're intently focused in on our two goals, which is to defund darkness by teaching people to be a biblically responsible investor, screening out companies that are using shareholder dollars to fund ungodly agendas, because we do believe that God owns it all and we want to be good stewards. And we're also intently focused on funding light, to use the financial resources that we have to be joyful, generous, and obedient givers to fund the work of the Lord in the earth. If you're a partner with us, we thank you very much. We appreciate your support. If you're not, please consider becoming one. It's just $132 a year, and you can find out more about it when you visit our website, financialissues.org. On today's show, we're going to get caught up on some of the questions that you guys have been sending in, and we're going to get some encouragement from the scriptures, which I think we'll start with right now. It's always a good place to start is in the Word of God. So Colossians 1:15 and 16 says this: He is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn over all creation. For by him all things were created that are in heaven and that are on the earth, the visible and the invisible, whether thrones or dominions or principalities or powers. All things were created through him and for him. Seth, you're up.
Love it, Shana. You know, I feel like as we look at the financial sector, as we look at the things that are happening in the world, sometimes we talk about scary stuff. And sometimes that even includes questions about what's coming in the end times, all that stuff. We don't have all the specific answers for that, Shana. What we do have the answer for is who is ruling over heaven and earth right now, and that is Jesus Christ. And that's wonderful, wonderful news. We serve the victorious, risen, reigning Christ, which means no foe, no world power, no antichrist, no nothing, not even the devil himself is a match for the Lord of glory. And he's on our team, or I guess it's better to say we're on his team. Yes. So we're covered by that protection there. Wonderful news, Shana. And I hope that can be a comfort to us all as we look at some things that are serious things, to be sure.
Yeah. Yep, you're right. I mean, we're living in some serious times. Things are happening at the speed of light, you know, the wars and the rumors of wars and all kinds of things that we heard about in the scriptures. And I think it's just human nature to be concerned, if not almost worried about some of these things. But, you know, and even Jesus' disciples were asking these questions. And, you know, you mentioned it's not for us to know the exact timing of everything that's going to go down. And, you know, Jesus redirected them back to what was important. He told them to watch, to stay sober, and to stay vigilant, but to be about his Father's work. You know, that's what we're called to do. So, you know, when worry creeps in and we're looking at all of these things, we can be grounded. We can remember what it says in this verse, because here it is again. All things were created through him and for him. So we talk about that very regularly on the show. The founding premise here is that God made it all. And so we believe that it is our goal and it is our act of worship to use those things to honor God. So let me just ask you this, a rhetorical question, I guess, but you can answer if you want, Seth.
Okay.
Have you ever used bleach to clean your face?
Thankfully, no. But I have bleached off like mold in my bathroom, and I've worried that I'll get it in my face and that it'll sting me. But thankfully, I have not cleaned my face with it.
Yes. So you're pretty smart then.
Yeah.
You know, bleach is a very effective cleaner, like you mentioned. But if you put it on your face, and I've never tried it myself either, but I would think that you would be very sorry.
Ouchie.
You know, everything that God made has an intended purpose, and everything will ultimately be used to accomplish God's purposes. So we can do this stewardship thing the easy way, or we can do it the the hard way. We can use money for the things that it was intended for, or we can use money for the things that it was not intended for, and then suffer the consequences. So we have the freedom to use whatever we have, however we want to, but we are bound by the consequences of those actions. And, if someone uses their entire paycheck to buy lotto tickets and they don't win, well, they have to figure out how they're going to pay their car note and their house note and everything else. And they have to deal with the consequences of not having that money to pay for those things if they have used that money foolishly. So let's follow Jesus' example of being fully reliant on God to meet all of our needs and to use the money that we've been given to bring glory and honor to its rightful owner.
Well said, Shana. Thank you.
All right. Well, I think my clock is continuing to give me trouble.
It's still being laggy.
It is still being laggy today. So, you know how much time we have.
We've got at least a good 5 minutes left, Shana, so plenty of time for at least a few questions, I think, here.
Sounds good.
First one up is Oscar. Oscar is saying, Shana, my boss has some retirement plans, and I'm wondering if they're any good or if they're BRI. They're State Street Target Retirement Funds, and he mentions a couple of them. If you know anything about those, just let me know what you think. What do you think about these, Shana?
Yeah, so I think he did give some symbols in there, and we did run them through the screener, but they are not biblically responsible. And, that's really going to be the case for most 401k plans. It is becoming more common practice these days for retirement plans, especially 401ks, to offer a self-directed option where you can actually buy individual stocks and things like that. But in most cases, I think a lot of 401k plans limit you to a menu of choices for what you can invest in, and it sounds like the case here. So although the ones that you mentioned are not biblically responsible, most of the time, the only ones that are going to be biblically responsible are the ones that are going to be like a stable value fund if they invest in treasuries, like U.S. government treasuries. Now, if you're looking for growth, those aren't going to be the things that you really need to be invested in for growth. But we always suggest participating in the 401k plan, especially if the employer offers a match, because that's 100% return on your money. If they offer dollar for dollar match up to a certain percentage, that's 100% return on your money. So, you can sort of afford to not forego the growth in that portion of the money. Contribute what you have to get the match, but then consider using other vehicle investment accounts for the rest of your savings. So if your employer offers a 3% match, you could contribute 3%, get the match, and then, pick from the biblically responsible options that you have, and then maybe open, if you want to do it, continue to do it on a pre-tax basis, open an IRA, and make your contributions there. If you're in a lower tax bracket, consider the Roth option. I think that gives you that's a great option to consider as well. And then beyond that, once you max those out, then you can just open a regular investment account. And, if you're doing it on a self-directed platform, you're never held hostage to just the menu of options that somebody else picks for you. The sky's kind of the limit. You can choose to invest in whatever. That's when you become a partner with us. You look at the asset allocation models, the buy list that we provide for our partners, and then you can build your own biblically responsible portfolio.
Awesome, Shana. All right, so we have a couple questions here that are really good questions. I'm going to try to find one that maybe it'll be a little bit quicker since we've got about 2 minutes left in this segment. But Nick is saying, Shana, I'm 69, I'm still employed full-time, no longer contributing to my portfolio on a regular basis, and I'm in the process of balancing my portfolio. How would you advise moving shares from one of my Timothy funds to my Schwab IRA? You and the team are a blessing, 69 years old. He mentions what fund that is. Shana, you're welcome to say it if you'd like.
Yeah. It's the Israel Fund. And so the Timothy Plan, Timothy Plan is a great partner with our ministry. They are a mutual fund company that does biblically responsible investing. They're sold out for this. So if you're using the mutual funds, you're basically hiring managers to do the investing for you to make those decisions. But this one is a part of our strategy as well. it's my understanding, it may be a little bit dated information, but I think that Schwab allows you to hold that particular fund. So if you're trying to move it from one place to another, you just have to fill out a transfer form. You can usually do that with the custodian that you're moving to. So once you have your account established, you just contact them and tell them that you have an account somewhere else. You'll probably have to provide a statement, and then you can fill out a form that you sign that tells your old custodian to send your investments to the new custodian. You'll want to tell them that you want to do that in kind so that they don't liquidate your positions. But, you'll have to check with Schwab first to see what kind of agreement they have with the Timothy plan to see if they will allow your account to hold that particular fund, and more importantly, if they will allow you to add to it. If not, you can always maintain an account directly with the Timothy plan for the portion of the money that you need to invest in their funds. So great question. Thanks, Nick. We appreciate that. Well, folks, I hear the music. That means we've got to take a break, but stay tuned. We're going to come back with more financial issues right after this break. I'm your host, Shana Burke.
Navigating through investment options can be challenging, especially when you're determined to uphold your God-given values. Every dollar you invest is a vote for the world that you want to live in. Let your values guide your investment decisions and help to shape the culture in which we live. Become a beacon of light and pave the way with biblically responsible investing. Timothy Plan, where faith and finance collide. Before investing, carefully consider the fund's investment objectives, risks, charges, and expenses of the investment company. This and other important information can be found in the fund's prospectus. To obtain a copy, visit timothyplan.com or call 800-846-7526. Read each prospectus carefully before investing. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal.
Through Crossroads Kids Club, lives like Dali's are being changed all over the world.
When I was 8 years old, my parents separated temporarily. It made me feel lost, empty, and without direction. Until one day, I went with my cousins to the Crossroads Club. This led me to know Lord Jesus and accept Him in my heart. He changed my life, and I don't feel lonely anymore.
Reaching kids with the hope of the gospel in schools and across the world. You can change a young life today at reachOurschools.com.
I found out I was pregnant when I was 21 years old. For me, I was scared, I was shaking. They do an ultrasound, and that's when everything changed. When I saw my baby and when I heard her heartbeat, that was it. We've seen the hand of God ever since we stepped into the pregnancy center.
To find out how you can support the life-saving mission of Preborn, go to preborn.com/FISM.
Securities offered through G.A. Reppel & Company, a registered broker-dealer and investment advisor, member FINRA and SIPC. Opinions expressed by Shana are hers alone and are for informational purposes only and do not necessarily represent those of G.A. Reppel or the outlet on which you are listening. You should consider how the information applies to your situation prior to personally implementing it and consult any financial professional you work with to make sure it's applicable to your financial plan.
Welcome back to Financial Issues. Thanks for tuning in. If you are a partner, we hope that you are in the habit of logging into your Financial Issues account and checking the commentary. So we are in the regular practice of updating that commentary, usually Tuesday afternoons, evenings. So if you check by Tuesday evening, Wednesday morning, then we should have a fresh commentary there. We share little snippets about things that sometimes there are things that are happening in the markets, in the economy, if it's big news. Other times we'll share little snippets into from our analyst meeting, things that we're talking about, things that we're discussing, give you a little bit of a glimpse into some of the strategies that we use, some of the things that we talk about in our meetings that may help you understand why certain things show up on our buy list and why they don't. But the good thing about being a partner is that if you have questions, you can always send them in. And you don't even have to be a partner to send them in. We have a place for partners and just general listeners to send in financial questions that they want to hear some insight on. So speaking of those, let's keep going.
Yeah, that's awesome. And by the way, Shana, I can't attest to that enough. I love your guys' partner commentaries. It's really good. It's an enjoyable read, easy read. You don't have to. It's not a long thing, but it really gives a good explanation. So love
there's
that.
3 of us on the team. So, and we're all a little bit different, but we come together on all of the right things.
Yeah,
and it's kind of
really
funny
cool.
sometimes to read, because we all kind of draft our commentary independently. And what ends up getting posted is sort of a blend of the 3. So
Nice.
It's good.
That's awesome. Shanna, by the way, you had mentioned, of course, the Ask Shanna portal for partners. Non-partners, very easy. If you want to ask a question, the main front page of the website, there's a Contact Us button. Just click that, and then you can ask any general question there.
Good.
Yeah.
Thanks for clearing that up.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Speaking of questions, Shanna, Douglas is 69, and Douglas is asking about IN22. So he's saying IN22, the board is recommending a vote against a shareholder proposal request to cease DEI efforts. It's been on the broad list as a hold. Love your thoughts on this, please, as to this company remaining BRI. I'm getting to like the new website, easier to manage portfolio. Thank you to the staff at FISM for this ministry. Douglas, thank you. Shanna, what do you have for him?
Yeah, great. We love that you love the website. I love the new website too. It is a lot easier to use. It's a lot easier on the eyes, easier to find things, I think. So we're very proud of what's come of it. So IN22, of course, the board is voting against the DEI, the request to cease DEI efforts. I'm surprised that we're still talking about this at all, really, because, with the new Trump administration, especially, it's very clear, they've canceled all the DEI programs in the federal government. They said this is kind of a waste of money and things like that. And the thing that I don't get is, I think DEI statements and programs are really dumb and unnecessary. I mean, if you just have a policy that says we hire and we promote the best person for the job without any consideration to their race, their creed, their color, their ethnicity, their sexual orientation, whatever it might be, I think you're going to do just fine. Mature people, the kind of people that you want to have working for a company, can get along with, work is work. You come together for a certain purpose. You don't really need to talk about all of those other things. You can be friends with whoever you want to be friends with outside of work, but in a workplace, it's necessary to respect other people just because they're people. That's the way that God teaches Christians to do it. We hate sin, but we love sinners. And so does Jesus. And so, I think it's really dumb and unnecessary for a company to have a DEI policy at all. But, that was the thing to do. They were, they were hounded by the left for having these things. But, Trump has even reminded all of these companies, hey, it's the Supreme Court reversed affirmative action. So, you really don't want to be venturing into that kind of policy that says that we have to hire people because of their race, their color, their creed, or whatever. Like, we have to have these quotas. We have to have so many of this and so many of that. And it perpetuates the problem. Putting labels on people just perpetuates the problem. So, I think it's dumb and unnecessary, if you just have the policy that says we hire the best person and we promote the best person regardless, based on their work ethic and getting the job done, then you're going to be just fine. So as far as them doing that, making them having a DEI statement or DEI policy does not in and of itself make a BRI violation. Now, it may send up some red flags that, hey, we may need to continue to watch this company to make sure that they're not going further than just, having a statement that says some things. But it's not, we have no reason to believe that it's not BRI at this point.
Good, Shana. Thank you for that one. Next one up we have is Michelle. Michelle does not say her age, I don't think, but she's saying, I've been wondering why E31, among others, have found themselves on the BRI watch list, but I can't find information anywhere. I even created an account on the evaluator tool and used one of the report options to request a screening report for it, and it noted a 0% violation. It makes me a little skeptical of the watch list status. What would you have for Michelle here, Shana?
Yeah, I mean, you can be leery or skeptical if you want to, but I think for the most part, the reason that we use this BRI watch status is because, as you mentioned, Michelle, these companies are technically clean. Otherwise, you would have gotten a sell alert from us. The evaluator is the main screening tool that we use. We don't have enough staff. I mean, Sam does a great job trying to dig up dirt on, companies to make sure that there's nothing out there that would concern us. But, following the 300 plus companies that we have on our broad list, and then trying to do research on companies that we may be interested in adding to the buy list or the broad list would be a monumental task. And it's the kind of task that calls for having a lot of staff and a lot of expertise and a lot of resources, resources that cost money. So we don't have the resources as a small ministry to do all of that work on our own. So we rely on trusted sources that actually do that kind of thing. So the evaluator is one of them. And as Michelle mentioned, you can go to our website. You can get the link over to evaluator. You can create your own little free account and you can screen the tools. So anything that is on our broad list is going to be technically clean. But sometimes people will write in and they'll say, well, I bought this company back when it was on the buy list. It's on the broad list. Maybe it's down a little bit, or maybe my other positions have grown so much that this represents a very small percentage of my portfolio. Can I add to it since I already have it? Well, if people are considering doing that, I would think that they would want to know if there's anything on the horizon that indicates that the company could be moving in the wrong direction. So another tool that we do use, another screening tool that we use, is the Inspire tool. And what we found is that sometimes the data that Inspire turns back is different from the data that Evaluator gives back. So through all of our due diligence, we rely more on Evaluator because of their screening, the way that they screen. There are a couple of things that I tend to take a little bit of an issue with that Inspire includes in their screening, and those are the ones that are going to be on BRI Watch. So they show up as a negative. The companies show up as a negative on Inspire if they show up on the HRC's corporate accountability, if they have a high score on that certain survey that they do. I don't necessarily think that is a BRI violation, because it could mean that they may be deploying company money on things that would show up as a BRI violation, but they technically are not. Just showing up, having a high score on that list, for me, doesn't necessitate a BRI violation. But it could indicate that, if they're doing a lot of things that they need to do to make this leftist organization happy, that they may continue to move in that direction and take a step that would create a BRI violation. So the reason that we have that BRI watch list is just to indicate to you that, hey, we are watching this company for violations, and they could take a big step in the direction of no longer being biblically responsible. So that's why we have the list.
Awesome, Shana. I think we got time for one final question. Buddy is asking about TE91. It was down back in March. It's gone up considerably since then, Shana. He has a target for this particular holding, a kind of a price target where he thinks it's best to sell, that he would like to sell at. And his question is, do you think it's possible for the stock to reach this target within the next 6 months, or just sell them at kind of where it is right now? And he's 30 years old.
Well, the stock that he's talking about is a really good stock.
Yeah, it is.
I don't think I would want to sell it at all.
Yeah.
And, the kind of research that we do, we don't do price targets. I know that you can find those out there. There's a lot of analysts that do them. And, the analysts that put them out do a lot of research on those particular companies. But price targets are sort of a fool's game. I mean, if you look at price targets and go and look how many times, because in some of the research that I follow, they do give price targets, but I'm constantly getting alerts that they're constantly revising their price targets. And so they either go up or they go down based on certain things. And that's a really short-term metric. When we're looking at buying a company, we're looking at 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road. And I think this is a company that you want to own for the long term. So, I mean, it probably would be on our buy list, but I think it is one that we are watching for BRI violations. So it is technically clean, so we own it, we like it. I personally would not be looking to sell it at all at this point. But thanks for submitting the question. All right, folks, if you're listening on an outlet that only carries the short version of the program, we wish you a good day. For everyone else, stick around. We've got more to come, including a visit.
In the last 10 to 15 years being in ministry, being married, something that has been constant in our lives is Samaritan Ministries. As we've moved, we've had babies, we've had different things come up, we have just been able to rely on Samaritan in ways that we never really even thought about before becoming members.
Our heart's desire is to plant roots and be in a place for a really long time. It's how we were raised. We see the benefits of that, but we also see the open-handedness of being used by the Lord wherever He calls, because we just assumed when we started pursuing church planting, the quickest way to get from point A to point B is a straight line. And with the Lord, sometimes you find out it looks a lot more like this. And yet, Samaritan was with us through the entire thing.
We didn't have to look into, we have to change insurances now because we've moved states or whatever the case may be. And it's just been a real blessing to us in different phases of life.
I'm Kyle.
I'm Colleen.
And we're the Gen X.
And we're Samaritan members.
When God calls us to follow Him, it starts as a personal conviction.
When I realized what I had been investing my money in, God immediately convicted my heart.
But as we experience the joy that comes from following God, we encourage others to join us in our journey.
If anybody's listening, thinking about joining, there's nothing like it.
Just want to say I'm a very happy 7-year partner. It's been a great ride.
It's been the best financial decision I've ever made.
As more people join us, our impact for Christ compounds.
Due to mounting external pressure, John Deere will no longer be participating in social or cultural awareness parades, festivals, or events.
Together we take the form of Christ, promoting good and eradicating evil.
You guys are on the front line of the battle. All we have to do is get in behind you and be strong, faithful.
Align your investments with your faith. Become an FISM partner today at financialissues.org.
Preborn is making motherhood possible for thousands of moms across America.
I found out that I was pregnant, and my family, they were like, no, you're not having this baby. I met Miss Linda. She told me about all the great resources, like they offer free baby clothes, they offer free classes, stuff for her mom. She prayed with me. She told me to ask God to, guide me to my decision. She made it completely like my choice. She offered to get me an ultrasound, and I found out I was 6 weeks pregnant. That's where I very first heard the heartbeat of my son, and I was sold. Whatever I gotta do, whatever comes my way, I'm just gonna, have this baby. It was really a great thing that I was led to the choice to keep on.
To find out how you can support the life-saving mission of Preborn, go to preborn.com/FISM.
Welcome back, folks. Thanks so much for sticking with us today here. Grateful to have each of you. Hey, just so you all know, normally at this time in the show, you will have heard from Jason McDowell. Jason typically joins us on Mondays. This week, a little bit different. He'll be joining us tomorrow on the show. So I'm looking forward very much to my conversation with Jason
We like to shake
tomorrow.
things up, just make sure people are paying attention,
Absolutely.
keep them on their toes.
Absolutely. That's always fun to do. So Jason's going to be on with us tomorrow. Looking forward to that a lot. You're going to want to tune in for that conversation. It's great to have you all this morning. We'll do a little chat rundown later on right now. Sam, let's get it kicked off, though, with I think the big news from Friday that we saw was that the U.S. and China have confirmed their new trade deal, and there's some details out about it. What can you tell us?
Yes, at least parts of it. The U.S. and China have confirmed a new trade agreement on rare earth exports. It comes after the two nations agreed to a framework deal a few weeks ago. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent appeared on Fox Business on Friday to share some of the details. Here he is.
We had trade talks in Geneva toward moving toward the agreement in London. Part of the agreement was tariffs coming down and rare earth magnets starting to flow back to the U.S. They form the core of a lot of our industrial base. They were not flowing as fast as previously agreed. President Trump and President Xi had a phone call, and then our teams met in London, ironed this out, and I am confident now that we, as agreed, the magnets will flow. In the meantime, we had put countermeasures versus the Chinese in place. We had held back the vital supplies for them. So what we're seeing here is a de-escalation under President Trump's leadership.
So, Seth, that issue here is the U.S. was accusing China of withholding rare earth exports, or at least not shipping to the U.S. as fast as they wanted to. That appears to be worked out. However, Bessent went on to say that, as always, the policy with China remains trust but verify. Here he is again.
That if they want to be good partners and do as they agreed in London, they're forthcoming with the magnets, then I think we can keep this de-escalation under control. We don't want to decouple. As a matter of fact, trade with China can go one of two ways. I talked about the de-risking and the strategic decoupling, but the generalized trade, we can either increase trade with China. They can open up because the trading relationship is so imbalanced. Or if they continue this imbalance, China accounts for 30% of the manufacturing in the world, and that's not sustainable. They need to consume more, and we would like to sell more to them, but they can't dump into the world. So we will see if they want to be a responsible partner.
So, put it simply, China, be good and good things will happen to you. Bessent also said he expects, apart from China, the U.S. to wrap up trade agreements with most of its trading partners by Labor Day. The White House also said it's willing, perhaps, to extend the tariff pause for countries negotiating, quote, in good faith. That pause is currently set to expire on July 9th.
Sam, any thoughts that you have? So you said most of the other trading partners should be wrapped up by Labor Day. Any idea of the potential date of when the China deals might be all wrapped up, or do we just not know that?
Who knows with China, because they're always playing this game where they're giving you something with one hand, taking away with another, so I'm not sure. The White House, though, apart from China, is saying that perhaps India will be the first country to come and make an official deal after China.
Yeah, good stuff. Sam, appreciate that a lot. Great to see more wheeling and dealing from the 47th presidential administration. Trump's doing a good job here. I like what I see. And I'm also, Sam, very comforted by the trust and verify policy. You have to have that. As we learn, the U.S. learned its lesson once with this already. You have to have that when you're dealing with the CCP. These are not easy people to deal with. And it's certainly not, as we talk about, it's certainly not a church committee. Okay,
this really have to go into these deals with eyes wide open, knowing that not only are you trying to get a good deal from China, and China's trying to get a good deal from the U.S., but China is also trying to shiv the U.S. in the process.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And it is interesting, Sam, you brought this up before. I'm not so sure that I can think of a time, at least in American history, and I'm sure there's been times in world history before, but something like this where you have two superpowers on the world stage clearly at enmity with each other, but also trying to operate in somewhat of a balmy trade relationship. It's interesting to see that for sure. before. And, so far there have been some hurdles along the way, but we're seeing some progress being made here. So just hoping that can continue.
And that is always the problem with China. Bessent in that clip said that we don't want to decouple from China. Personally, I do want to see us decouple with China because I think that will be better for us in the long run. Perhaps what Trump's trying to do, though, is just ease off on that process just a little bit. We kind of went from 0 to 100 with China, so maybe they're pulling back a little bit so that we can stretch out that process and make it easier to go our separate ways in the long run.
Yeah, definitely. Good stuff there, Sam. Folks, this has been a recurring topic that we've seen in our commentaries that we've been getting. I don't want to give too much of that away, but certainly Shana and the team do a fantastic job.
I think you should read all the commentaries
word for
on
word.
air. Just spill the beans, give away the farm. Do it right now.
But in all seriousness, it is a fantastic thing for you to be able to do to keep updated with those partner commentaries. A lot of good information when we're trying to figure out what's happening on the world stage. And as we've been seeing, Sam, this U.S.-China stuff has been really dominating much of the Trump administration, at least since April, and so I'm sure we'll be seeing some more of that. But really good stuff, Sam. I appreciate you bringing that to our attention. All right, folks, let's take a look here at the markets now. So Friday, investors were feeling pretty good. Trade deals getting done. The comeback from April's chaos in many ways has really been complete by midday, at least as of today, I should say. All three indices firmly positive. The S&P 500 touched new records during Friday's trading hours, and by late afternoon, indices still positive. They retreated from the record highs, but they were able to kind of keep that high line pretty good for the day. By Friday's closing bell, you have the Dow Jones finished right at 1% positive, and the S&P and the NASDAQ up 0.5%. The S&P and the NASDAQ did hit those all-time highs. For the month of June to date, today's the last day of June, so we technically still have one more day to go. But to date, the Dow Jones is currently trading up 3.7%. The S&P 500 is up almost 4.5%. And the NASDAQ is up over 6%. So it has been a fantastic month of June for the markets. And the pre-markets were trending that way as well early this morning. As we have opened now just right about 10 minutes ago, all three indices still positive. Pretty moderately so right now, as the Dow Jones is up about a third, the S&P 500 is up about a quarter, and that is really the same with the NASDAQ, up slightly higher.
If I had to guess, I bet markets are pretty happy that Trump and Canada are now negotiating again after Trump perhaps said they were going to break that off on Friday. They've seemed to make up over the weekend, though.
Yeah, it's good to see that they have been made up a little bit. So that's what we're looking at here right now, folks. Some things to expect this week. This is Jobs Week, so Shana shared some of this on Friday, but just to give a quick recap, the implications of this Jolts report could sway Fed policy more than President Trump's posts on Truth Social could. The unemployment rate widely expected to hold at 4.2% for now, but even the Fed is expecting unemployment to rise slightly by year end. We're keeping an eye on that right now, folks. And just keeping in mind here, the most interesting scenario could be if the labor market holds steady. Powell will have no data covered to lower rates, meaning he will hold rates steady, which would likely make him even more late to act than he already is. So that's what we're looking at there. One more thing to watch for this week, folks, is the big, beautiful bill. We are hoping, I think, Sam, that we'll get that this week. There's a lot to talk about for this, and we may have to hold that.
Trump's hoping for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's a lot of things, once again, it's a mixed bag, folks. But I think weighing in the positives versus the negatives, I think we have to be praying that this thing will make it to the president's desk for sure. Coming back on the other side of the ag, perhaps I'll share some more thoughts on this. But once again, what we're looking at this week, Jolts, the big, beautiful bill, and any updates as well from the China-U.S. stuff in a shortened trading week. Well, we got Craig Haugaard coming up here for the Ag Report, then more financial issues right after this.
This is Craig Haugaard with your Financial Issues Ag Update for June 30th. Corn futures moved higher on Friday as we saw profit taking ahead of today's USDA quarterly stocks report, as well as the planted acres report. Now, while we were higher for the day on Friday, the week was still rough as December corn had a net loss of 14.25 cents for the week. December corn ended Friday's session 6 cents higher at $4.27 per bushel. Soybeans also benefited from a round of profit taking on Friday. Now, in spite of the higher close, we're still dealing with a beneficial weather forecast, which points towards a large U.S. soybean yield. Additionally, Finally, traders are dealing with questions surrounding the biofuel policy. Now, the main question is if imported oil seeds are then crushed in the U.S., if that would create a soybean oil that qualifies for 100% RIN values. If so, we're going to create a scenario in which it's financially advantageous to import Brazilian soybeans, export the soybean meal, and use the soybean oil in renewable fuels. If the EPA isn't careful, they're going to create a huge import demand for foreign soybeans. November beans finished today 8.25 cents higher at 10.24 3/4. Wheat had a meek recovery on limited short covering. Minneapolis September wheat was 2.5 cents higher at 6.28. Kansas City was unchanged at 5.33 3/4, and Chicago was 4 cents better at 5.40 3/4. Cotton futures closed higher every single day last week. On Friday, they were up 52 points in the December futures at 69.32. Livestock futures all ended the week on a higher note as well. August live cattle were $4.10 higher at $213.30 per hundredweight. August feeder cattle rose by $4.60, ending the session at $307.90 per hundred. And we had August lean hog futures 2.5 cents higher at $110.27 per hundredweight. Class 3 milk futures turned in an extremely impressive performance to end the week. On the close Friday, we had July futures up 47 points as they ended the session at 17.56. This has been Craig Haugaard with your Financial Issues Ag Update. We'll be right back with more financial issues after this.
It's up to us to stand up and say, enough is enough. All of this unbiblical stuff that's going on, whether it's abortion or transsexual or LGBTQ, widespread pornography, human trafficking. Bottom line, it's still up to us. If we stop investing in these corporations that are trying to destroy us, sooner or later they're going to wake up.
To learn more about biblically responsible mutual funds and ETFs, go to timothyplan.com.
My baby was like this big, and I saw his heart beating on the screen. I went from, I don't want this baby, to talking to my child on the screen. That sonogram changed my life. I went from just Candace to Mom.
To find out how you can support the life-saving mission of Preborn, go to preborn.com/FISM.
From the time Crossroads began back in 1998, our sole focus was on reaching children in public schools in the United States. And then in 2017, we decided to translate our curriculum into Spanish, primarily so that we could serve Spanish-speaking churches and students in the U.S. And as I was connecting with a pastor in Chicago and telling him about the materials that Crossroads had in Spanish and about what Kids Club was all about, he said, "Hey, I have a friend in Mexico who I think would really benefit from these materials and your approach to working with children." And so I began the conversation with Rolando Gonzalez. In March of 2018, I traveled for the first time to Guadalajara and met with Rolando, and right away we just connected on a heart level. And so we set a team in August of 2018 to train leaders here in Mexico, and the first international kids clubs were born.
Reaching kids with the hope of the gospel in schools and across the world. You can change a young life today at reachOurSchools.com.
The opinions and recommendations expressed on this program do not necessarily represent the opinions of the station or any of the program sponsors. Additionally, all products or services offered by the program sponsors may not be known by the program.
You know, folks, as I mentioned in that last segment, one of the things we need to be looking out for this week is the survival of the big, beautiful bill. And I don't say that, the BBB, the BBB gun. I don't say that, thinking, okay, there's a chance it's not going to survive, but more what version of it will survive. I saw a very interesting and somewhat concerning tweet from our friend Tony Perkins over at FRC, Family Research Council. And Tony said this, he said, and I quote Tony here, he said, "The president's one big, beautiful bill is quickly losing its glamour in the Senate. The bill now appears to be a contestant in a beauty pageant for a tractor pull where Republican leaders appear to have been completely out-muscled by the parliamentarian, or worse yet, didn't try to secure the key components of the House version." He goes on to say, "The Senate version currently defunds big abortion providers like Planned Parenthood for only 1 year instead of 10. That's a huge disappointment." And also goes on to explain how There also could be in the current version a lot less when it comes to the hope of having taxpayer dollars no longer funding gender transition experiments on vulnerable individuals. Apparently that's going to still happen. And Tony says this shows an unacceptable lack of political will. Folks, I think he's exactly right. And I think this is why we need to pray for fortitude, wisdom, and common sense when it comes to people considering what matters most here. Politics is important, but I think even more important than that is upholding the moral law of God. And in a well-functioning, good society, those things, the moral law of God actually governs politics. Unfortunately, we may be seeing politics being made more important here. I hope we don't. I'd encourage you to pray that the big, beautiful bill not only would make it, but that it would make it with those other provisions in it, because those are so important.
Yeah, you're seeing Chip Roy complain about a lot of this stuff, who he wasn't too pleased with the House version of it, but says they're really gutting even the good stuff out of the House bill in the Senate bill. So that might cause some problems when they have to reconcile these two between the chambers. But we'll just have to wait and see. But you're right.
Yeah, absolutely. It is unfortunate. And listen, I get to, Sam, we talk about this a lot on the show, that this is part of the game. There's a give and take here. I understand there's a serious
politics is the art of the possible.
Ultimately, absolutely. It's like the prototype of that. But there comes a time where you have to stop giving and you have to say, this is the line I'm going to draw in the sand. And so hopefully we can see the truth, goodness, and virtue win out with this. Absolutely. So we'll keep an eye on that, folks. Again, the hope is that we'll get news on this before we break for the 4th of July. So we'll just have to see if that happens there.
We're simple people, Seth. All we want out of this is tax cuts to continue and stop killing babies. We're pretty simple in what we want.
I may be no genius, but I feel like that's not too much to ask.
Doesn't seem too hard.
Tax cuts don't kill babies.
We're actually asking you to stop doing two things.
That's right.
Stop collecting taxes and stop killing babies.
That's right. It should be
doing
easier.
less.
That's exactly right. That's well said, Sam. Very good. Well, the FISM chat is lively here. George Nelson and James, good to see you guys. Jason, I know, is there as well. We've got Dave and Darlene. Hello to you guys. Who else? James from Texas. I mentioned James from South Carolina earlier, so we also got James from Texas there this morning. William from Mississippi. Hello, William. Nathan from Mississippi as well. UJ is there this morning. Good morning, Uncle John. Great to see you, brother. And Bob from kind of around our neck of the woods in New Jersey. Great to see you as well, Bob. Happy to have all of you on Financial Issues this morning, as well as our social media audience, radio audience, TV audience. Good to have you all. Sam, let's jump back to China for just a moment here and talk about what's happening with China and really the biggest theater of the current arms race, which I think is AI. What can you tell us about that?
Exactly. Despite the recent trade deal we talked about last segment, President Trump remains dead set on defeating China in the AI arms race. According to Reuters, the Trump administration is readying a package of executive orders aimed at boosting energy supply to power the U.S. expansion of AI. This is very important, as AI is a huge energy suck. It's expected to increase power demand 30-fold over the next 10 years, which is just a crazy, mind-boggling amount of energy. Sources say Trump's executive orders would make it easier for power-generating projects to connect to the grid and provide federal land for AI data centers. Back in January, Trump had called for an AI action plan to make, quote, America the world capital in artificial intelligence.
Good stuff, Sam. Thank you for bringing that to our attention there. So interesting stuff for sure, folks. You know, in the first Cold War, the U.S. battled the USSR over several non-combative arms races of sorts. By God's grace, the Cold War never went hot, because had it gone hot, it likely would have gone nuclear, and the world may not exist as we know it right now.
We did have those proxy fights, Vietnam and things like that.
Yeah, exactly. You have some proxy wars. So you've got Vietnam, you've got Korea, you've got some other theaters like that. But really, the Cold War played out on other arenas other than the battlefield, such as nuclear stockpiling. And again, by God's grace, in the 45-year span from the end of World War II up until the fall of the Berlin Wall in the late 1980s, early 1990s, not one of those was ever fired, obviously outside of the ones that ended World War II by the United States. But also space travel was another one. Educational and technological prowess, those were big things. You see the United States and the the USSR really battling for that. Another one was athletic prowess. I find that kind of fascinating. You don't see that too much today. Little known fact, by the way, Philadelphia plug, my Philadelphia Flyers absolutely battered the Russian Red Army team back in 1976, 4 years before the famous U.S. Olympic team beat the Russian Red Army team.
So that was not the Miracle on Ice.
It was not the Miracle on Ice. This was the, what would you call this? This was the beat down on ice, as you call it. The Red Army did not stand a chance in that game. Yeah. Pretty crazy stuff. They were getting checked all over the place. They actually ended up protesting the game halfway through because they were like, this kind of hockey is not, it's animalistic. And so the Flyers said, well, you guys can leave, but you're not going to get paid.
Well, they're socialists. They're wussies.
Exactly right. So anyway, needless to say, that was just another arena where this played out. The second Cold War, and that's what I'm calling this here. The second Cold War is the U.S. and the CCP, the United States and Communist China. I believe we're in one right now. By God's grace, this also won't turn hot. But a similar fashion as to the Soviets, but in some different theaters. So you've got military arms races, you've got nuclear stockpiling, you've got educational and technological production. The most important theater that didn't exist in the 20th century, Sam, is AI. And I think that's really one that we're going to see continuing here. Actually, Jason and I are going to touch on this a little bit tomorrow, and we'll discuss some of this here. I think we're living very similarly, Sam, in an age that the boomers and the Gen X were in the 90s on the advent of the internet age. We might be seeing something potentially world-changing when it comes to AI. We may never go back again. And that was kind of what happened in the 90s.
I think that's certainly the case. Right now, AI is kind of a novelty where we use it to make fun pictures and maybe help us with our editing and writing things a little bit, but we still don't fully grasp the kind of impact this is going to have once it gets inside everything we use. AI is the future, and whoever controls and creates AI, be it China or the U.S., is going to control the future.
That's exactly right. That's
high-stakes poker.
Yeah. And of course, folks, this is going to have an impact on our investments as well when you're talking about companies that use AI. It's going to continue. I mean, this is just the way that the world's going. I personally don't like it. I would love for AI never to have come into existence in the first place. I think AI can be used for great things, though. So it's kind of one of those things where you just say, okay,
it's here. You have to deal with it.
You got to deal with it. Let's do our best with it, and keep that in mind in our investments as well, for sure.
And you would know if you're in the growth model how integral AI and tech is to some of our investment models.
That's exactly right. Yep, that's exactly right. All the more reason, folks, to become a partner. By the way, if what Sam and I were just talking about didn't make a whole lot of sense to you, that means you probably need to become a partner with Financial Issues, and you can do that today at financialissues.org. One more headline here to get to, Sam. I found this very exciting as we talk about perhaps some not so exciting things. The Supreme Court did side with religious freedom in a ruling, I believe, last week. What can you tell us about this?
Not exactly a financial issue, but still an important issue for Christians. In a 6-3 decision on Friday, the Supreme Court ruled that schools must allow religious parents to opt their kids out of LGBT curriculum. The case stems from a Maryland school district that introduced LGBT books in their schools for kids as young as pre-K. It goes through 12th grade to pre-K. That was in their language arts curriculum. Parents said these books promoted gender transitions, pride parades, and same-sex playground romances. I say it's for religious parents because it wasn't just Christians objecting to this. It was also Muslims as well coming together for this lawsuit.
Interesting.
Justice Samuel Alito said the school district violated parents' religious freedom by not letting them opt their kids out of these lessons.
Boy, it's wonderful to see the Supreme Court upholding good laws, Sam. I think that's really, really good stuff. Excellent news. For our society to have any chance at flourishing. We've seen a lot of victories, by the way, folks, but so easily those can be lost. For any chance, parents have to be freed up to choose how their children learn. Parents have to be able to teach their children. And I think this is part of why we are big proponents of homeschooling here at the ministry. It's not that we're anti-public school by any stretch of the imagination, but if you are a parent and you're a Christian parent, you love your children, there is an option for you there where you can actually be the one to teach them the truths of God. Now, of course, many cannot homeschool. Many cannot afford Christian schools. Thankfully, there's also freedom in public schools for ministries like Crossroads Kids Club. This is why we need ministries like Crossroads Kids Club in public schools, fighting for the truth, fighting for the gospel, being there for children and providing for them what the public school itself will never provide. Crossroads is giving them the truth here. here, and they're getting into the public school, reaching these kids there. So that's why we love Crossroads Kids Club, by the way. You can check them out at reachOurSchools.com. Again, that's reachOurSchools.com. Good stuff there, Sam. I appreciate that. One more look here at the markets, folks, before we close our show for today. The Dow Jones currently sits almost 0.5% positive. The S&P 500 about a fifth. Same with the NASDAQ, about a fifth there. So as we move forward today, I'm sure we'll be talking more about this on the show tomorrow. Until then, folks, remember, everything that you have belongs to the Lord. It was great to be here with you all today. Let's be found good and faithful stewards with everything that God has given to us, our families, our communities, our homes, and of course our money as well, and most importantly, the gospel. God bless you all. Lord willing, we'll see you next time for more financial issues. Have a great day.
If we ever forget that we're one nation under God, then we will be a nation gone under.
Thank you for joining us. This has been an FISM production.